I still remember that October afternoon, the air heavy with the scent of rain and fallen leaves. I was walking home from the grocery store when I saw her, my daughter-in-law, Chloe Carter, dragging 2 black trash bags across the driveway. She looked frustrated, moving fast, like she wanted to get rid of something she didn't want anyone to see. Then I saw it. Half hanging out of one of the bags was a small mint green baby blanket, the one I had knitted myself for my granddaughter, Sophie. My heart skipped a beat. That blanket wasn't just yarn and fabric, it was love woven into every stitch, the last thing I had made when my son Nathan was still alive. Chloe shoved the blanket deeper into the dumpster, slammed the lid, and went back into the house. I stood there frozen. I couldn't understand why she would throw it away. That blanket had been Nathan's favorite thing. He said it had a kind of magic. Whenever he wrapped Sophie in it, she would stop crying instantly. Maybe Chloe thought it was old or dirty, maybe she didn't care, but I did. I waited until she went inside, then crossed the street. My hands were shaking as I lifted the dumpster lid. The smell of perfume and trash mixed together, and there it was, the blanket, crumpled and dusty, half buried under discarded boxes. I pulled it out carefully and pressed it against my chest. It still smelled faintly of baby powder and something else, something that made my stomach tighten. I brought it home, locked the door, and spread the blanket on my bed. The mint color had faded a little, but the pattern was the same, small hearts along the edges and a soft lace trim. I ran my fingers across the surface, tracing every stitch like it could bring Nathan back to me. Then I felt it, a hard lump in the center, small and rectangular, hidden between the layers of cotton. My breath caught. I pressed it again. Definitely something solid, not part of the fabric. I checked the seams and noticed a line of stitching slightly different from the rest. Someone had opened it and sewn it back shut. I went to my sewing drawer and grabbed my small silver scissors, the same pair I'd used to make that blanket years ago. My hands trembled as I slid the blade under the thread and started to cut, one stitch at a time. Each snap of the thread echoed through the quiet room. When the final stitch gave way, I reached inside and touched something cold and smooth. I pulled it out slowly, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. It was a phone. An old black cell phone. And in that moment, I knew my life was about to change forever. For a long moment, I just stared at the phone resting in my palm. It was covered in dust, the kind of layer that takes years to form. Why would Chloe hide a phone inside a baby blanket? I brushed it clean with my sleeve, plugged it into the old charger drawer I kept for just in case, and waited. The screen flickered, then came to life. No password, no lock, just a plain home screen with a single folder named Notes. My stomach twisted as I tapped it. There were dozens of files, photos, messages, and recordings. The first photo nearly stopped my heart. Chloe was smiling, holding a glass of wine, and beside her was a man I didn't recognize. He had rough hands, a confident grin, and the kind of charm that looked dangerous when you knew what to look for. The file name said Ryan. Another photo showed the two of them together at a lake, arms wrapped around each other. The date stamp was from 3 years ago, 3 weeks before Nathan died. My vision blurred as I scrolled faster. Messages popped up like ghosts. Chloe, he'll never let me go. Ryan, then we make it happen. Chloe, Tuesday, 3 p.m. He'll be alone. Make it look like an accident. I couldn't breathe. Tuesday, that was the day Nathan fell down the stairs in their new house. I remember the call like it was yesterday, the paramedics saying it was instant. I felt the room spin. The walls seemed to close in around me. My son didn't fall. He was pushed. I clicked on another file, a voice memo. My fingers trembled as I hit play. Chloe's voice filled the room. Calm, cold, and calculated. He doesn't suspect a thing. I'll tell him I'm working late, but I'll make sure he's home. You know what to do, Ryan. Once it's over, we'll finally be free. The recording ended. Silence swallowed me whole. My hands clutched the phone like it might vanish. My son had trusted her with his life, and she had planned his death. I pressed the power button, staring at my reflection in the dark screen. I looked older than I remembered, grayer, heavier, hollow. But beneath the grief, something else began to stir, a quiet, burning anger. She thought she had buried her sins in the folds of a baby blanket. But what she didn't know was that she had handed me the key to her destruction. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my small living room with the phone on the table, the only light coming from the old lamp beside me. I kept replaying the voice memo, hoping I'd misheard something. But no, every word was clear. My daughter-in-law had planned my son's death with another man. I thought back to Nathan's funeral, the way Chloe cried without tears, clutching Sophie like a prop. Everyone had said she was brave, so strong for a young widow, they whispered. I remember how she wore a black dress that looked more like a statement than mourning, and that faint smile when people weren't looking. It haunted me now. My mind ran through the years that followed. She sold the house 6 months later, bought a new car, took vacations to heal, and every time I asked to see Sophie, she made excuses. She's sleeping, she's with friends, we're busy. I had blamed grief for her distance. Now I saw it for what it was: fear. She had been hiding more than her guilt. She had been hiding the truth. I stared at Nathan's photo on the wall, his smile, his eyes, the quiet kindness that had filled every corner of our lives. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I should have seen it. But sorrow wouldn't bring him back, and it wouldn't protect Sophie. I picked up the phone again. I didn't know how far this went, but I knew one thing: this wasn't over. I needed help, someone I could trust completely. There was only one person who came to mind: Helen Moore, my next-door neighbor and my closest friend for 40 years. Helen had been there through everything: my husband's death, Nathan's wedding, even the night I got the call about the accident. When I knocked on her door the next morning, she opened it before I could say a word. One look at my face, and she knew something was wrong. I need to show you something, I said. And once I do, you'll never see Chloe the same way again. Helen and I sat at her kitchen table, the morning sun spilling across the white tiles. I handed her the phone, my hand still trembling. She listened to the recording in silence, her face hardening with every word. When it ended, she leaned back slowly, eyes wide. Good Lord, Grace, she whispered. That woman didn't just cheat on your son, she killed him. I nodded, feeling the truth settle like a stone in my chest, and she got away with it. Helen straightened her glasses, her mind already working. If we're going to take this to the police, we'll need more than a few messages. She'll say it's fake. We need proof that ties her to him and to money. She turned her laptop toward me. Let's start with the man, Ryan Hale. It didn't take long. He had a public profile, a construction manager for a renovation company in downtown Portland. A smiling photo with coworkers, another of him fishing by a lake, and one of him standing beside a luxury SUV. His life looked comfortable, too comfortable. Helen scrolled down and froze. Grace, look at this. The date on one post read 3 months after Nathan's death. Ryan was holding a set of keys, captioned, New Beginnings. Behind him, the house in the background looked disturbingly familiar. It was Chloe's. We dug deeper. Property records showed that the house Nathan and Chloe had lived in had been sold shortly after the funeral for nearly $500,000. The same week, an insurance payout of $500,000 had been issued in Chloe's name. And 2 months later, there was a recorded bank transfer from Chloe Carter to a personal account under Ryan Hale, $200,000. Helen exhaled. She didn't just fall in love, Grace. She financed her new life. I sat back, numb. The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. My son had worked 12-hour shifts as a doctor, saving for his family's future. And she turned that future into blood money. I looked out the window, where Sophie's toys still sat in Chloe's yard next door, tiny reminders of the innocents caught between monsters. She killed Nathan for money, I said quietly. But I swear to you, Helen, she won't get away with it. Helen reached across the table and took my hand. Then let's make sure she doesn't. The next few days passed in a blur of research and quiet tension. Helen and I spent every evening poring over records, news articles, and anything that could connect Chloe and Ryan to something bigger. But what we found next wasn't what either of us expected. Helen came over one morning, holding a folded piece of paper she had pulled from her printer. Grace, you're not going to believe this, she said, sliding it across my table. It was a copy of Sophie's birth certificate. I had seen the original once framed in Chloe's hallway years ago, but this one was different. Under Mother's name, it didn't say Chloe Carter, it said Lily Torres. I stared at the name, my mind refusing to process it. Who is Lily Torres? That's what I wanted to know, Helen replied, so I searched, and Grace, she's missing. Has been for almost 4 years. She pulled up a news article on her tablet. Local woman, 28, missing after leaving hospital with newborn baby. Police found signs of struggle in her apartment. The photo hit me like a punch. Lily was young, with kind eyes and long brown hair. She looked like someone who loved her child, someone who would never leave willingly. Helen scrolled to the end of the article. Authorities later found the infant's blanket but no trace of the baby. The case remains unsolved. The blanket. My chest tightened. The mint green one I had made. Could it be? Helen leaned closer. Grace, what if Chloe didn't just take Nathan's life? What if she took someone else's baby before that? The room went silent. The truth settled between us like a storm cloud. If Lily was Sophie's real mother, then Chloe's crimes went far beyond greed. I felt the blood drain from my face. She stole a child. She killed my son. God knows what else she's capable of. Helen's voice shook. We need to go to the police. I nodded slowly, my jaw set. Yes, but first we gather everything. Every document, every message, every trace. Because when we walk into that station, I want there to be no way out for her. By the time we gathered everything, I had a folder so thick it barely closed, printed screenshots, bank transfers, photos, and that cursed phone sealed in a clear plastic bag. My hands trembled as I carried it into the Portland Police Department, where Detective Mark Reynolds met us in his office. He was in his 50s, calm, sharp-eyed, the kind of man who had seen too much but still cared. He listened carefully as I spoke, taking notes, stopping only to ask for dates or details. When I played the recording of Chloe and Ryan, his pen froze mid-air. When the voice memo ended, he leaned back and exhaled. Mrs. Bennett, I'll be honest. If this is real, it's not just a domestic case. It's a murder investigation and possibly more than one. Helen looked at me, then back at him. Detective, it's real. We have records, transfers, even the original phone. Reynolds nodded, his expression turning grave. All right, I'll reopen your son's file. And I want our forensics team to re-examine the evidence from the supposed accident. You said it was a fall down the stairs? Yes, I said quietly. But he was strong, careful. He never would have just slipped. A week later, Detective Reynolds called me back to the station. The minute I saw his face, I knew. The coroner rechecked the photos and reports, he said. Your son had bruises on his wrists consistent with restraint. Someone held him before he fell. The air left my lungs. Even knowing the truth, hearing it confirmed shattered something inside me. Reynolds continued, we also traced the insurance payout and the wire transfer to Ryan Hale. We have grounds for a criminal warrant. But we need to move carefully. If they suspect we're on to them, they might run. I nodded, gripping the edge of the desk to steady myself. Do whatever it takes, detective. Just don't let her hurt anyone else. He gave me a small, reassuring nod. We'll get her, Miss Bennett. I promise. That night, I sat in my kitchen staring at the mint green blanket folded neatly on the table. It had once wrapped my granddaughter in warmth. Now it wrapped the evidence of murder. Chloe thought her secrets were buried. But we were already digging. 2 weeks later, the phone rang just after dawn. It was Detective Reynolds. His voice was tense. Mrs. Bennett, we've got movement. Chloe's packing up. Looks like she's trying to leave town. I froze, the mug of coffee slipping from my hand and shattering on the floor. Where's Sophie? She's with her, he said. But don't worry, we're tracking her. The next hours felt endless. I sat by the window, staring at the empty street, praying under my breath. The woman who had destroyed my family was now trying to disappear with my granddaughter, the only piece of Nathan I had left. By noon, Reynolds called again. She's at Portland International Airport. We've got officers moving in. I didn't breathe until I heard the next words. She's in custody, Grace. The child is safe. I sank into the chair and covered my face. Tears poured down freely, relief, grief, and rage tangled together. For the first time in years, I felt Nathan beside me. Maybe not in body, but in spirit. I could almost hear his voice. You did it, Mom? You protected her? When I finally saw Sophie later that day, she was clutching a small stuffed rabbit, her eyes wide with confusion. Grandma? She whispered. I knelt and opened my arms. It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe now. She buried her face in my shoulder, and I held her tighter than I ever had before. The world outside could wait. Right then, it was just the two of us, survivors of the same storm. Later that evening, Reynolds came by to update me. She had cash, fake passports, and plane tickets to Mexico City, he said. If we'd been a day later, she would have vanished. I looked down at Sophie asleep on the couch, her tiny hand clutching mine. She thought she could outrun the truth, I whispered. But she forgot truth travels faster. The trial began 3 months later, and the courthouse was packed every single day. Reporters lined the steps, cameras flashing as Chloe was escorted in wearing an orange jumpsuit, her hair pulled back tight. She still carried herself like a victim, chin high, eyes cold, pretending the world had wronged her. But this time the world was finally watching her for who she truly was. Detective Reynolds testified first. He laid out the evidence methodically: the insurance payout, the bank transfers, the voice memo, and the forensics report proving Nathan had been restrained before falling. Every piece connected perfectly, a puzzle that spelled one word: murder. Then came the bombshell. During a search of Chloe's house, police had found a hidden safe under a loose floorboard in the master bedroom. Inside were hard drives, cash, and a camera card. On that card was a series of video diaries Chloe had recorded for herself, her truth, as she called it. In one clip, her voice played through the courtroom speakers. "I don't regret it. Nathan was weak. He never appreciated what I did for him. I built our future with my own hands, and he stood in the way. I took what I deserved." Her own words silenced the room. Ryan Hale was brought in next. His face was pale, his body thinner from months in custody. He accepted a plea deal in exchange for full cooperation. When asked why he helped Chloe, his answer was simple: "Because she made me believe it was love." The jury didn't need long. Guilty on all counts: first-degree murder of Nathan Carter and Lily Torres, plus 3 counts of homicide linked to elderly patients at the care facility where she worked. As the verdict was read, Chloe didn't flinch. She just stared straight ahead like she'd expected it all along. But I saw the truth in her eyes. Beneath the coldness was fear. When the gavel came down, I finally exhaled. The monster who had stolen my son's life and another woman's child would never see freedom again. Her arrogance had become her confession. Her own words had sealed her fate. After the trial, the air in my house felt different, lighter somehow, as if the walls themselves had been waiting for justice too. For years I had carried the weight of Nathan's death like a stone in my chest. Now that weight had finally begun to lift. Chloe was sentenced to 6 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Ryan Hale, the man who helped destroy my family, died of a heart attack 2 years into his sentence. The newspapers called it poetic justice. I called it peace. Sophie was officially placed in my care. When the judge signed the adoption papers, I could hardly hold the pen steady. My hands trembled not from fear but from gratitude. I was finally her guardian, in every sense of the word. At first Sophie had nightmares. She'd wake up crying for her mother, though she didn't understand what her mother had done. I never spoke ill of Chloe to her. Instead, I told her that sometimes people get lost in darkness, and it's our job to live in the light they couldn't find. The seasons passed quietly. I filled our home with laughter again, baking cookies, planting flowers, reading bedtime stories. Little by little, Sophie began to smile without fear. The first time she called me Mom, my heart nearly broke from joy. One afternoon, we sat together on the porch, the sun setting behind the trees. Sophie wrapped a small blanket around her doll, mint green, soft and new. "Grandma," she said softly, "I made this one myself." I smiled. "That's beautiful, sweetheart." The old blanket, the one that had once hidden death, was folded away in a wooden box in my closet. I didn't throw it out. It reminded me that even in the darkest places, truth can still be found. And this time, the truth had set us free. 15 years have passed since that day in court. Sophie is no longer the frightened little girl clutching her stuffed rabbit. She's 20 now, a bright, determined young woman studying medicine at Oregon State University. Every time I see her in her white coat, I see a reflection of Nathan, the same quiet strength, the same gentle heart. Last Christmas, she came home with a surprise. She handed me a neatly wrapped box and grinned the way she used to when she was small. Inside was a blanket, soft and mint green, with tiny hearts stitched along the edges. "I made it myself," she said proudly, "like the one you used to keep for me. But this one has no secrets." I pressed it to my chest and felt tears fill my eyes. "It's perfect," I whispered. We sat together by the fire that night. 2 lives were built from the ashes of betrayal. Sophie told me she wanted to dedicate her future to helping children, those who've been lost, abandoned, or hurt by the ones meant to protect them. She said it was her way of breaking the cycle, of giving back what had once been stolen. The old blanket still sits in my cedar chest upstairs, folded neatly beside the new one. One carries the scars of lies and death, the other carries love, redemption, and hope. Together they tell our story of how truth can survive even the deepest darkness. As I look at Sophie now laughing by the firelight, I realize that vengeance was never the end. Justice was only the beginning. What truly matters is what we choose to build from the ruins. The truth will always rise. And love, real love, will always endure. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and tell me where you're watching from, because every story of courage deserves to be heard.